Students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today, I am speaking before you, Dr. Krishnendu Ray, teaching in the Department of Ancient Indian History and Culture, University of Calcutta. In this module, we are concerned with an understanding of the social stratification in ancient India, particularly from the hoary past, from as early as the pre-Harappan days to about 4th century AD. With so vast span of time, there occurred a number of changes, and in the light of those changes, social, economic, political, etc., we shall be trying to understand the concept of social stratification. So this is the learning objective today, this concept of stratification in early Indian society. Here, as I told you earlier, just now, we are concerned with an understanding of how or what actually changes social, economic. As the years had rolled on, human beings more and more faced complexities in their social life. And with their developments in economic activities, political developments, social developments, many things, with these changes, they also came forward with complexities. Particularly, these are noticeable in one particular archaeological excavated area, that is Dholavira, where we find a very clear-cut 4 divisions of the people who had lived at that time. So M.K. Dhavlikar, noted archaeologist, he has told us that this was a class-structured society because there were other different categories of people who lived in those quarters. So this was perhaps the beginning of the division of human beings along their social lines of social life. This might have been followed up in the later days. As we come to the Rig Veda, we find the Purusha Sukta hymn, in which this is the period 1500 to 1000 BC, most probably, because this is also a debated date. Some say that the Rig Veda was composed during the period from 12,000 to 1000 AD. Some say 1500 to 1000 AD. This is debated, but mostly now accepted date is 1500 BC to 1000 BC. During this period, we find a very clear-cut reference to the Shukta, that is Purusha Shukta, in which we find the Brahmanas came from the mouth of the primordial being, the Kshatriyas came from the arms, the Vaishyas from the thighs, and the Shudras from the feet of the primal being. The concept of social stratification that I have just now told you, we have seen in the case of the Dholavira artifacts. This was followed up in the later days, as we have just now seen in the Rigvedic period. Now, with the passage of time, certain changes developed, certain changes occurred. What those? That was political, economic and social changes. Now, it appears that there were socio-economic changes in early India during the period from this 2nd century BC to 4th century AD or CE. Politically, the period witnessed the role of a number of political powers and their political activities in different parts of early India. Economically, the period witnessed changes or developments in trade and commerce, rise of ports, both on the west coast as well as east coast, that is Bharugacho, Mojiris, Gange, Kaviripattinam, etc., etc. Along with these, we also find the development of artisanal activities. And socially, these changes must let their impact on human beings' daily lives. Particularly, we find them being divided according to their capacities or skills. So these were the changes that created social divisions, at the same time also gave birth to a new attitude towards life, how they led their lives. This was the development historically along the lines of changes that I have mentioned you just now. What we find, this is 4 Borno system underwent a change. Now, just now I have told you, mentioned the Rig Veda, in which we find the mentioned textual reference to the division, 4 Borno division, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishya and Shudras, 4 Borno division of the society. But as the society had progressed with the changes, so as I have told you just now, the people also developed a new attitude towards life. These attitudes and changes also made its impact on the concept of Borno, traditional 4 Borno system, how it developed. Besides the above 4 Bornos, we find another major thing, major development. This is each and every Borno further witnessed changes or division within itself. So Brahmanas, as I told you, they were the most privileged class. What we find, the Brahmanas had a white complexion. Actually, socially, they were treated in this way. White complexion, they were superior class. Then come the Kshatriyas, they were red complexioned, Vaishyas yellow, Shudras dark, as they were looked down upon in the society. They were placed in the last rung of the society. So they were in this way treated. And particularly, these were according to their occupation and propensity, how they developed their skills, artisanal skills particularly. Brahmanas in this way enjoyed the most privileged or supreme position in the society, and side by side we also find the development or emergence of so-called mlechos, as I have told you just now. Now, 4 Borno system underwent a change. Particularly, these Bornos, as the society witnessed developments or changes, no compulsion was there to remain, for any Borno or each Borno to remain isolated. So there was intermixture as the situation demanded. So what we get in the Dharma Shastras, intermixture of Bornos, that is Borno Shankara, emerged. Gradually the society witnessed the existence of multiple social groups. Naturally, if Brahmins could married Kshatriyas, their offshoots, their children become mixed. So this is how multiple groups emerged. If we keep this society with multiple communities, what we get? Particularly stratification within the Brahman Borno according to their propensities, occupations, or other skills or other capacities. What we get within each Borno. First of all, we shall take up Brahman Borno. What we get? What is the picture that we get in the Brahman Borno? First of all, the society gradually encountered a variety of changes, not only along socio-economic lines, but also along the attitudes of the people. The matter may be understood in different respects. In the case of paying fines or debt, we find that a Brahmana was to pay it by installment, but not in the case of other Varnas. They were to pay at the same time. But this is where the element of social stratification emerges within the Brahmin Varna. What we get? But the Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, as I told you just now, had to pay it by rendering labor. Students, you note the point. Brahmanas paid it by installment, whereas the other Varnas people, they had to pay it by rendering their labor. So this was the clear element of social stratification, how they were treated and how the others were treated. In the case of the interest rate, Brahmins enjoyed lowest rate, but not in the other cases. Here also the point that we find the social stratification was maintained. Brahman was made free from paying it ferries. They were freely taken across the river, but not in the case of the other Varnas. So here also we find social stratification. This is how we find another major thing, treasure, hidden treasures. If Brahman found, he took it fully, but if others found, what we get? They had to share it with the Brahmins. So you notice how stratification was maintained in connection with other Varnas as well as in the Brahmin Varna also. Here also a clear social stratification. With the passage of time, attitudes changed. In point of tax relief, the Brahmins, according to the Brihaspati and Apastamba Dharma Sutra, only the learned Kshatriya Brahmanas, they were exempted. Remember one thing, not all the Brahmins, only Kshatriya learned Brahmanas were made free from paying interest or other things. So here we find social stratification within the Brahman Varna. Only the learned Brahmanas could enjoy freedom, but not all others. What we get next? In the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, we find another major source of this period. Only the pious Brahmins enjoyed exemption from tax payment. So those who were only pious, not or impious Brahmanas, they had to pay. But only pious Brahmanas made free. So this is how here also we find social stratification within the Brahmin Varnas. So Brahmanas, learned Brahmanas, pious Brahmanas, ordinary Brahmanas, these are the social stratification. At the same time within the Brahman Varnas. 3 layers we find. What we get next? In the matters of judiciary, what we get? We get only learned Brahmanas could try a case, but not the others. Here also we find social stratification. In the matters of inheritance of family property, Brahmins could enjoy a share. Kshatriya wife, actually the son of a Kshatriya wife by Brahmin father, he took 3 shares, but son of a Vaishya wife to get 2 shares and Shudra wife only 1 share. Here also you notice stratification. This is how stratification was maintained socially. Thus in point of giving shares, following the law of inheritance, stratification was made, as I told you earlier. In point of officiating at a sacrifice, we find only the learned Kshatriya Brahmins could do it, not all Brahmins. Here also we find within the Brahmana social stratification. Professional priests were not given high status in society. Those who officiated for others were not given social status, not that much as they required. But at the same time, according to Panini, Mahabharata, Manu Samhita, we find Brahmanas to have taken to soldiering. So, students, as I told you earlier, that with the passage of time, society witnessed many changes. And in the light of those changes, it was not possible for whole Varna people, that is Brahmin Varna people, to live only on officiating or teaching, etc., etc. They had to take to other professions also. This we get mentioned in the Mahabharata, Manu Samhita in this period, that they took to soldiering and other professions also. So, this is how Brahmin Varna witnessed social stratification. Here we get another very interesting example. In Dasha Brahmana Jataka, what we get? Brahmins who forgot their proper duties took to professions for gains, and not all Brahmins. Actually, a time came when some Brahmanas ran after gains, forgetting their Varna duties and functions. So tight or say so strict or hard times came for them. They had to take to other professions also. So this is how they were stratified. Their stratification arose within the Brahman Varna. Buddhist texts also, Sutta Nipat, refers to a good number of Brahmanas who pursued different professions. Here also social fact is being noted in the text that Brahmin Varna suffered from stratification. There arose Brahmanas with other professions than their traditional Varna duties. Mahasutta Samajataka refers to a Brahman merchant. Even Brahmins became a merchant. Just think, Brahmins cannot take to trade traditionally, but here we get the reference to the fact that a Brahmin became a merchant. And very good example, Bhasha's Charudatta, where we get Charudatta was a Brahmin by birth, but he became a very big merchant, but lost everything. That's another issue, but he became a merchant, though he was a Brahmin by birth. This is how we find within the Brahmin Varna so many layers, so stratification was maintained socially, or in other words, in the social space. What do we get next? Similarly, in the Kshatriya Varna also we get so many layers of social stratification. Traditionally, Kshatriyas in the second position of the social ladder with their Varna duties and function. What is that? That is providing protection, carrying arms. Besides this, what we get? See this. The Kshatriyas were the Rajanas of the Vedic age, right? They formed the ruling group, right? Carried arms, right? But in the Arthashastra Manu Samhita, Yajnavalkya, Kshatriya's occupations included Vedic study also. There were Kshatriya teachers. Remember, Kshatriya's traditional duty was to provide protection and carry arms, ruling. But here we get the references to their becoming teachers concerning with Vedic study. And what we get, the most appropriate functions of the Kshatriyas were providing protection to the people and carrying arms, that I have told you. But besides this, we have references to other Kshatriyas who took to other duties. So here also we find the element of social stratification among within the Kshatriya Varna. Okay, Kshatriyas were preferred to administration, right? Note it. Kshatriyas were asked to provide protection. Here we find them being employed in the matters of administration of military affairs. Executive power lay with the Kshatriyas. According to the Kashika commentary, that is a text on Panini, we find that within the Kshatriya Varnas, some Kshatriyas had political power and so-called Rajanas, and some Kshatriyas were ordinary ones. Here also social stratification. In the Manu Samhita, we find the Kshatriyas had cattle wealth, big farms. Remember, their Varna duties were to provide protection and carrying arms. Here we find them being provided with wealth. They became wealthy with big farms. So here we find an element of social stratification within the Kshatriya Varna. In other words, some Kshatriyas had big farms, political powers. Some Kshatriyas had wealth. So, in the Jatakas, we find them to trade. So, within the Kshatriya Varna, we find some Kshatriyas became traders, some Kshatriyas became wealthy, some Kshatriyas became big farm holders, some Kshatriyas became politically powerful. This is how social stratification occurred within the Kshatriya Varna. Now, we find them, as I told you earlier, becoming political thinkers also. If you go to the Kautilya's Arthashastra, you will find almost in every case, Kautilya refers to his earlier political thinkers who were Kshatriyas, Bahudantiya, Batavyadhi, Vishalaksha, they were Kshatriyas. It means within the Kshatriya Varnas, some Kshatriyas became political thinkers. In this connection, we find Manu Samhita referring to non-Brahman teachers for whom a Brahmana could learn. That is, those teachers were not Brahmins. It means maybe they were Kshatriyas, from whom Kshatriya, even a Brahmin, could learn. So we find that Kshatriyas became teachers also, political thinkers also. Now it appears from the Jatakas, what we get, the poorer Kshatriyas earned their livelihood by rendering manual service. So all Kshatriyas were not wealthy, all Kshatriyas were not politically powerful, all Kshatriyas were not big farm holders, there were poor Kshatriyas also. These also being referred to in the Jatakas. That is, the society witnessed social stratification, clear stratification within the Kshatriya Varna. But the Kshatriyas initiated on the 11th day in point of initiation, that is Upanayana, initiation. Kshatriyas also given on the 11th day, not at par with the Brahmins. There also we find social stratification. Thus, stratification was maintained in the case of defamation of the Brahmanas by the Kshatriyas, or Kshatriya was to pay 100 panus. But in the case of the defamation of the Kshatriya by the Brahmana, was to pay only 50 panus. Here also we find stratification between two Varnas, that is Kshatriya Varna and Brahman Varna. How stratification was maintained? We get there were all the wealthy Kshatriyas, the ordinary Kshatriyas that I have mentioned you. So were the layers within the Kshatriya Varna nets. Students, let us now come to the stratification within the Vaishya Varna. What the picture? Here also we find some Vaishyas became artisans, some manufacturers, big merchants, according to, as we find the case of Onath Pindika. Here also some Vaishyas became potters. They became very rich. So within the Vaishya Varna also we find in this way stratification, layers of stratification. So, as for example, Saddalaputta, under whom several weavers used to work. Saddalaputta was a very rich Vaishya, under whom there were weavers. They were also Vaishyas, but they were not as wealthy as Saddalaputta was. So there was stratification in terms of, in point of wealth. So this is how the layers of stratification within the Vaishya Varna we get. So according to G.C. Pandey and N.C. Banerjee, the society of the day witnessed the growth of towns. So why we find such and such changes within the Vaishya Varna? With the passage of time, we find the emergence of towns, commerce, rise of ports, as I told you earlier. This impacted on the Vaishya Varna. Some became wealthy by tapping these changes. Some could not become so. Some lived on manufacturing or labor, rendering their labors. So this is how, with these changes, we find the layers of social stratification within the Vaishya Varna. What we get next? Weavers supplied yarn to the Gahapati, another major social group who were very, very wealthy in the society. Not all. Here also stratification. These changes may show differences within the common people, like peace, as we find it being referred to in the Vedic text, common people. So many changes, so many groups with their artisanal or capacities or in terms of wealth. On the one hand, there was big and wealthy people, and there were artisans groups in the society of the time, as I told you earlier. And according to a few Jataka evidences, and A.N. Bose, Otindra Narayan Bose, another noted historian, we find that a worker with his wages maintained his life from hand to mouth. That is, there were poorer Vaishyas. What we get? Now, gradually some of them took to commerce. Rich members of the Vaishya Varna, as I told you earlier, they became very much wealthy people within the Vaishya Varna. They took to trade and commerce. So they became very rich merchants. According to Dharma Sutra tradition, many members of the Vaishya Varna, the tillers of the soil, as I told you earlier, tillers of the soil. So on the one hand, we get references to wealthy Vaishya merchants. On the other hand, we get references to tillers of the soil, poorer Vaishyas. So this is the stratification. Now, in other words, there were poor Vaishyas in the society, according, as I told you earlier. Vinaya Pitaka, another Buddhist text, and the life of the poor is evil in comparison to that of the rich. So here also we find the stratification according to the situation, life situation of the wealthy Vaishya as well as the poorer Vaishya. So, in case with the rich members of the Vaishya Varna, we may recall some Sethi or Sreshti of the, in Sanskrit. Epigraphic records from Damodarpur, that is in Bengal, early Bengal, to their connection with local administration. So, students, you just remember, those who became rich and influential enough, they were preferred in the administrative matters. This we find reference inscription of Damodarpur, in which we find they were engaged in local administration, Nagara Seshti, Rivupalo by name. The sales from Bashar, that is not Bihar, there is Shartabaho, Kuliko, Seshti, They were wealthy Vaishyas. They were very much wealthy people within the Vaishya Varna. And so much wealthy, they were preferred in the administrative matters. They were associated with the royal administration. So, possibly the Shreshtis were the most influential merchant among the traders. Similarly, we come across another term, Shartavaho. Here we also, another social group, Shartavaho caravan leaders, they became so much influential, they were preferred and they enjoyed the most supreme position among the merchants. Another social group. They were also important personalities in the local administration. It may be said that these fabulously rich Vaishyas, because of their direct connection with the king through the local administration, rose in status in the society. Naturally, those who became rich, even today also you see, those who are rich, influential, get preference. Naturally, those do not get preference. As simple as that. So this is how stratification was maintained, as it is maintained still today also. So what we guessed. In this respect, inscriptions also are there, particularly Buller's list of Brahmin inscriptions, in which we find lots of references to poorer Vaishyas, ordinary Vaishyas, and wealthy merchants who donated. In other words, Vaishyas who had the capacity to donate. So this is how, in terms of donation, we find the layers of stratification within the Vaishya Varna. We have references to small traders, such as gold traders, textile traders, corn dealers, etc. Here also we find, in terms of particularly trade, we find layers of stratification. Not all Vaishyas became big traders or big merchants and Anatminika or other Shartavaho, but there were small traders also. This is how stratification was maintained. In religious life also, Vaishyas were even away from the Brahmanas. That is, they were, in comparison to the Brahman Varna, they were away. They were kept away from the Brahmanas. Similarly, in the Shudra Varna also we find stratification. Just one thing in this regard we have to keep in mind, that Vaishyas became traders, but the manufacturing, some Vaishyas took to manufacturing or other professions, but manual labor services or manufacturing, these tasks were gradually left to the Shudras, that is, traditionally who were placed in the lowest rung of the social ladder. They, with the changes, tapping the changes, taking opportunities of the changes that I have mentioned earlier, they also tried to change their fortunes by taking to different professions and other activities, economic activities. What we get? Born as they were from the feet of the Purusha, they were asked to serve the upper Varna. This is traditional, but with the passage of time, what we get? They were not allowed to participate in the social life of the people. This is right. But their social position began to change with the passage of time that I have mentioned to you just now. Many people of the Vaishya Varna, as I told you, took to trade and commerce. The task of the agrarian and non-artisanal productions were therefore largely left behind. These the Shudra Varna people took. And what we get? Manu Samhita, we find the Shudras to have been mentioned together with the artisans and merchants, mechanics, Karukaran, Shilpinoshchaivo, in the context of taxation. It means there were some Shudras who became artisans. Remember, here we find the layer of stratification, social stratification. Though traditionally they were placed in the lowest rung of the society, but with the passage of time, some Shudras became artisans, that is, changed their lot, changed their fortunes, changed their social position also. So they were also placed at par with others in terms of taxation. In other words, some of the Shudras might have taken to the pursuit of artisanal production. At this point, it is to be noted that inscriptional records from Ludus list draw our attention to the economic prosperity of artisans. They also donated. In other words, some Shudras acquired the capacity to donate. This I will be mentioning later. They included workers in jewelry. Just now I have told you that they became artisans also. Jewelry, leather wood, gold, etc., etc. There are so many Shudra artisans, Shudra workers. Apparently, they lived on manual labor. These workers gave religious donations. In other words, they acquired the capacity to donate, as I have told you just now. This shows the fact that they were financially capable enough to make such gifts to the religious institution. In this connection, it is also to be noted that artisan, according to the list number 36, that is in Brahmi inscriptions, belong to the king Sri Shatakarni. Remember, this is very important and very significant point, that some Shudra artisan became associated with the king. So high their status became, so socially influential they became. This is how social stratification is noticeable in this case also. In the Manu Samhita, we find that a Brahmana sold milk. If a Brahmana sold milk, he became a Shudra. In other words, Shudra became a seller of milk. That is, Shudra took to profession of trade. So they are also, we find them being stratified along the lines of trading. Remember their Varna position, their Varna traditional Varna duties. They were asked to be at the feet of the others, three upper Varnas. Here we find them being a seller. So this is the situation, this is how social stratification was continued to maintain in the society, particularly among the Shudra Varna. Economic prosperity of the Shudras might have taken them close to the upper Varnas. Remember, even today also we find this. Those who have wealth, influence, much more connections, they are preferred. They are chosen in comparison to the others. In the same way, at that time also, some Shudras were taken close to the upper Varnas in terms of their wealth, capacity, development, etc., etc. According to the Manu Samhita and Yajnavalkya Smriti, another contemporary texts, if a daughter of a Shudra woman by a twice-born man was given in marriage to a male of a upper Varna, then after 7 generations that family became a Brahman. Remember, originally a Shudra became a Brahman after 7 generations. That means if we take 25 years for one generation, then after 7 generations, the family became a Brahmin. So was the stratification, so was the change. The social status of the Shudra family became higher. According to the Yajnavalkya Smriti, some Shudras could perform funeral rites. Remember, Shudras were not given that chance, but here we find them provided with this right also. Shraddha, 5 great sacrifices also. Perhaps only the wealthy Shudras were given such and such rights because they had acquired the capacities to do these. So not all the Shudras, here also we find the layer of stratification. Wealthy Shudras, ordinary Shudras, non-wealthy Shudras, in terms of such and such rights and duties and other preferences or choices. In terms of keeping servants, there was a stratification among the Shudras. So what we get in a nutshell, it appears the people have developed a tendency towards social division from the hoary past. We have seen Varna-divided society through the ages. We have also seen that the early Indian society was characterized by a number of mixed castes. Thus, we have noticed social stratification along the lines of Varnas and mixed castes. Even within every Varna, we have seen stratification in terms of capacities, wealth, etc. of the people. Further, among the wealthy people, as I have told you just now, there were the layers of stratification. The survival of the human society proverbially depends upon the different types of social services rendered by the people with different capacities. In fact, concept of stratification is therefore implied in the social space. It is only expressed in different manners. Thank you.